On August 24th, Shiloh Sanders got waived by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just 24 hours after throwing a punch that got him ejected from their preseason finale against the Bills.
Buccaneers informed rookie Shiloh Sanders today that he's being waived.
The son of NFL legend Deion Sanders has just reacted to being cut, and his reaction is something the NFL didn't see coming. Let's get into it. The fall from grace. The NFL can be the most unforgiving stage in all of professional sports, where dreams are crushed in the blink of an eye, and where even the most promising careers can come crashing down with a single moment of poor judgment. For Shiloh Sanders, the 25-year-old son of legendary Hall of Famer Deion, Coach Prime Sanders, that moment arrived on August 24th, 2025, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made a decision that would send shockwaves throughout the entire football world. Let's take you back to where this all began. Shiloh Sanders wasn't just any ordinary undrafted free agent. This was a young man who had carved out an impressive collegiate career, accumulating 229 tackles, 6 interceptions, and 7 forced fumbles across his time at South Carolina, Jackson State, and Colorado. His journey through college football reads like a testament to perseverance, following his father from program to program, always fighting to establish his own identity in the massive shadow cast by one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers saw something special in Shiloh when they signed him immediately after the 2025 NFL Draft, with his father Deion announcing the signing live on Twitch to the excitement of thousands of viewers. The family celebration was palpable, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the Sanders legacy was about to add another chapter in the NFL.
Just one more question
Yes,
for you.
sir.
Obviously, Folsom put in the artificial turf
Yes, sir.
this summer. What do you like about that look of the turf and the feel of it? Did the players enjoy it?
I like the look of it because it's beautiful.
But the NFL has a way of humbling even the most confident individuals, and Shiloh's journey would prove to be no exception. His contract details tell the story of just how precarious his position truly was. A 3-year deal worth $2,965,000 with only $1,572 guaranteed. That minimal guarantee wasn't just a number on a piece of paper, it was a stark reminder that in the NFL, nothing is promised, and everything must be earned through blood, sweat, and unwavering dedication. During training camp and the early preseason games, Shiloh showed flashes of the talent that had made him a standout at the collegiate level. Head coach Todd Bowles was initially optimistic about his prospects, describing him as very aggressive, very young, very hungry, and noting his potential contributions on special teams. The coaching staff appreciated his football IQ and his ability to communicate effectively with his teammates from day one. But football is a game of inches, and sometimes those inches can determine the difference between achieving your lifelong dream and watching it slip through your fingers. Shiloh's preseason performance was steady but unremarkable. 4 tackles across 3 games. Numbers that don't exactly jump off the stat sheet when you're fighting for one of the final roster spots on an NFL team. The turning point came on August 23rd, 2025, during what should have been just another preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. What transpired in those crucial moments would change everything for Shiloh Sanders and provide a stark lesson about the razor-thin margins that separate success from failure in professional football.
Buccaneers informed rookie Shiloh Sanders today that he's being waived. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, Robert Bailey, a former teammate of mine with the Ravens, added, "We're hoping he'd get claimed off waivers."
The incident that would ultimately seal Shiloh's fate was as unnecessary as it was damaging. After being flagged for pass interference earlier in the game, Shiloh found himself in a heated exchange with Bills tight end Zach Davidson. In a moment that he would undoubtedly want to take back, Shiloh threw a punch during post-play shoving, resulting in his immediate ejection from the game. The visual was devastating for a young player already fighting an uphill battle. There he was, a Sanders, being escorted off the field for throwing a punch in what was essentially a meaningless preseason game. The optics couldn't have been worse, especially for someone carrying the weight of such a legendary family name. Coach Todd Bowles didn't mince words when addressing the incident. His response was swift and uncompromising.
I know you can't throw punches in this league. I mean, that's inexcusable. They're gonna get you every time. Got to grow from that.
These weren't just coach speak platitudes. They were the words of a man who had seen too many promising careers derailed by momentary lapses in judgment. What makes the situation even more heartbreaking is that by all accounts, Shiloh was well liked within the organization. Reports indicated that the Buccaneers enjoyed having Shiloh in the building and viewed him as a good kid who was respectful to everyone. His agents later confirmed that he was immediately remorseful following the incident. But in the NFL, being a good person and showing remorse sometimes isn't enough to overcome poor decision-making, especially when you're an undrafted rookie with minimal leverage. The harsh reality is that teams have invested millions of dollars in draft picks, and when roster spots become scarce, those investments typically take priority over undrafted players who make costly mistakes. The timeline of events that followed was swift and merciless. Less than 24 hours after the incident on August 24, 2025, the Buccaneers made their decision. As teams across the league were making their final roster cuts to reach the mandatory 53-man limit, Shiloh Sanders received the phone call that every NFL hopeful dreads. He was being waived. The news broke like wildfire across social media and sports networks. Here was the son of one of the most iconic players in NFL history, a young man who had carried the burden of impossible expectations his entire life, being told that his services were no longer needed. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. This wasn't just another roster cut. This was a potential dynasty coming to an abrupt and unexpected halt. The waiver of Coach Prime's son sparked a media firestorm, exposing deep divisions over the decision, the Sanders family legacy, and bigger debates about nepotism, racism, and fairness in professional sports. Before Shiloh reacted, other legends had already weighed in, and their takes were surprisingly divided. When legends react and fans divide. The first and most significant reaction came from the man who had perhaps the most at stake in Shiloh's success, Deion Sanders himself. Coach Prime, never one to shy away from the spotlight or difficult conversations, addressed his son's situation with the kind of measured confidence that had defined his Hall of Fame career.
Oh, most definitely, he's my son. I'm proud of my kids, all of them, and I prepared my kids for any and everything that could possibly happen in life and in sport.
Deion's response was masterful in its balance of paternal pride and realistic acceptance of the situation. He continued with words that would resonate far beyond this single incident. "We're praying that he gets another opportunity to go with a team, but if he doesn't, the plans have already been put forward to what he's going to do next. All the Sanders are going to be straight, with or without football."
He's gonna be straight. All the Sanders are gonna be straight, with or without football. You better believe that.
This wasn't just a father defending his son. This was a strategic communication from someone who understood that this moment would define how the Sanders family handled adversity. The message was clear. They had prepared for this possibility. They had contingency plans, and they would emerge from this setback stronger than before. But perhaps most tellingly, Deion revealed something that made Shiloh's silence even more intriguing. Shiloh is a man of many talents. This wasn't just coach speak or parental hyperbole. This was a hint that the Sanders family had always known that football might not be Shiloh's ultimate destination, that they had been preparing alternative paths all along. The professional response came through Shiloh's representation. Agents Drew Rosenhaus and Robert Bailey, both respected figures in NFL circles, put out a measured statement expressing hope while acknowledging the reality of the situation. "We're hoping he gets claimed on waivers," they said, while also noting the team's appreciation for Shiloh as a person and player. What made their comments particularly interesting was their emphasis on Shiloh's character. They specifically mentioned that the Buccaneers viewed him as a good kid who was at all times respectful to everyone, and that he was immediately remorseful after the incident. This wasn't damage control. This was an attempt to preserve his reputation for future opportunities. The media landscape exploded with analysis and commentary from every conceivable angle. Shannon Sharpe, the Hall of Fame tight end and media personality, offered perhaps the most poignant perspective on the situation during his podcast Nightcap.
This is the very first time, and it's really hard because think about it, Ocho. He's 20. I think he's 24, 25.
Sharpe continued with an observation that cut straight to the heart of what made this story so compelling. For the first time in 24, 25 years, somebody has told you you're not good enough. This wasn't just about football. This was about a young man confronting failure and rejection for potentially the first time in his life.
He's 25. But think about it. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, for the first time in your life, you're in your mid-20s.
The insight was profound because it highlighted something that many people don't consider about children of successful athletes. They often live in a bubble of success and expectation that can make the first taste of real failure particularly devastating. But not everyone in the media was sympathetic to Shiloh's situation. Antonio Brown, never one to shy away from controversy, took to social media with a characteristically blunt take. Whole Sanders fam gonna end up getting cut out the league. Not even their fault at NFL couldn't humble their dad, so they will repay, kids. Brown's comments, while harsh, tapped into a sentiment that was brewing in certain corners of social media and sports commentary, that the NFL was somehow targeting the Sanders family, that there was a coordinated effort to prevent Coach Prime's children from succeeding at the professional level. This theory gained traction when fans began pointing out the unusual nature of the coverage surrounding Shiloh's waiver. As Shannon Sharpe noted, maybe you can recall the last time an undrafted free agent, it was breaking news that he was getting released, getting waived, whatever the case may be. The point was valid. Undrafted rookies get cut every day without making national headlines.
Sometimes your last name can be a blessing and a curse. It's not normal that free agents have breaking news that they're being released. He's an undrafted free agent. And because his name is Sanders, the blessing and the curse, people say, well, Shannon, he only got an opportunity because his last name is Sanders.
The social media reaction was swift and polarized. Supporters rallied around the Sanders family, with many alleging that racism and bias played a role in the decision. Comments like, "I'm starting to believe the NFL wants to make the Sanders men look bad on purpose," began circulating widely. Others compared the treatment of the Sanders family to that of other NFL dynasties, asking pointed questions about whether families like the Mannings would receive the same level of scrutiny and criticism. The conversations quickly evolved from being about football performance to broader discussions about race, privilege, and fairness in professional sports. On the flip side, critics argued that the waiver was purely merit-based and that Shiloh's family name shouldn't shield him from consequences. Comments like "couldn't happen to a better kid" family reflected a sentiment among some fans that the Sanders family received preferential treatment and media attention that other players didn't enjoy. The debate became particularly heated when discussing the incident itself. Some fans viewed Shiloh's punch as self-defense, arguing that he was being excessively blocked and had every right to protect himself. Others saw it as an inexcusable lapse in judgment that demonstrated a lack of maturity and professionalism required at the NFL level. Professional analysts tried to provide more measured takes on the situation. Dan Orlovsky, Stephen A. Smith, and other ESPN personalities engaged in lengthy discussions about the fairness of the decision, the role of family legacy in professional sports, and the broader implications for other children of famous athletes.
But you know what? My brother had a very interesting take on a dream. He said, you know what a dream is, Ocho? A dream that comes true? He said it's a gift to yourself. A dream is a gift to yourself. I had very similar dreams.
The conversation evolved into broader discussions about the pressure faced by children of successful athletes. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Ochocinco Johnson spent significant time on their show discussing the unique challenges faced by kids who grow up in the shadow of legendary parents.
Coming from our situations, Ocho, it's easy to be motivated.
Oh, yeah.
Being hungry, being hot, being cold, it's easy. Being rained on, it's easy to develop motivation.
What made this analysis particularly insightful was their recognition that motivation can actually be more difficult to maintain when you don't face the same external pressures that drive many athletes. When your family is already successful, when financial security is guaranteed, finding that internal drive to push through adversity can be more challenging. Through all of this commentary, analysis, and debate, one voice remained conspicuously absent: Shiloh Sanders himself. His continued silence began to take on a different meaning as days passed. Was it strategic? Was he processing privately? Was he following legal or professional advice? The questions multiplied, but the answers never came. What the absence of a reaction really means. In the 72 hours following Shiloh Sanders' waiver from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, something unprecedented happened in the modern era of professional sports. Complete and total silence from the athlete at the center of the storm. While the sports world buzzed with theories, reactions, and hot takes, Shiloh himself remained as quiet as a church mouse, creating one of the most intriguing mysteries in recent NFL history. This wasn't just unusual, it was virtually unheard of. In today's hyper-connected world, where athletes regularly share their thoughts on social media, where every significant career moment becomes content for Instagram stories and Twitter threads, Shiloh's decision to remain completely silent spoke volumes about his character, his state of mind, and perhaps his long-term strategic thinking. Research suggests Shiloh Sanders has not publicly reacted to his waiver by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with no statements found on his social media or in interviews as of August 27, 2025. This absence of any public commentary became a story in itself, leading many to wonder what was really going through his mind during those crucial days. The silence becomes even more remarkable when you consider the context. This was a young man who had just experienced what Shannon Sharpe correctly identified as potentially the first time in his life that someone had told him he wasn't good enough. For most 25-year-olds, such a devastating professional setback would likely result in some form of public response, whether it be defiance, explanation, gratitude, or even anger. But Shiloh chose a different path entirely. His social media accounts, which had previously shown glimpses of his personality and life in the NFL, went dark. No farewell messages to teammates, no gratitude posts to the organization, no defiant declarations about proving doubters wrong, nothing. The absence was so complete that it began to feel intentional, almost strategic in its execution. What makes this silence even more compelling is understanding what Shiloh was choosing not to do. He wasn't following the typical playbook for athletes facing career setbacks. He wasn't making emotional appeals to other teams, wasn't defending his actions, wasn't seeking sympathy from fans. Instead, he seemed to be taking a page from a completely different handbook, one that prioritized dignity and privacy over public relations. The only insights into Shiloh's emotional state came through secondary sources. His agents reported that he was immediately remorseful, following the incident that led to his ejection and subsequent waiver. This suggests that privately, he was grappling with the consequences of his actions and understanding the gravity of what had transpired.
This part of fathering, this part of parenting, this part of having a relationship. So he is mentally where he needs to be, physically where he needs to be. We're praying that he gets another opportunity to go with a team.
His father's comments provided another window into Shiloh's mindset. Deion's assertion that Shiloh was mentally where he needs to be, physically where he needs to be, suggested that whatever processing was happening, it was occurring within the family structure, away from public scrutiny. This approach stood in stark contrast to how many modern athletes handle career adversity. In an era where personal branding and public narrative control are considered essential skills for professional athletes, Shiloh's choice to remain silent represented either remarkable maturity or a complete departure from conventional wisdom. The silence also highlighted the unique position that children of famous athletes find themselves in. As Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson discussed extensively on their podcast, the pressure of living up to legendary parents creates a different set of challenges than most people face. In this context, Shiloh's decision to process his setback privately could be seen as an attempt to separate his individual journey from his family's public narrative. What's particularly fascinating is that this silence occurred during a crucial window for his career. Shiloh cleared waivers unclaimed on August 27, 2025, becoming an unrestricted free agent. This meant that his next moves would be critical in determining whether his NFL dreams could continue elsewhere. The waiver process itself revealed something about how the league viewed him. In the NFL, waiving a player like Sanders places them on the waiver wire for 24 hours, allowing other teams to claim them based on priority. The fact that no team claimed him wasn't necessarily a damning indictment of his talent. Undrafted rookies have a notoriously difficult path to making NFL rosters, with only 4 to 6% typically making initial 53-man rosters. But his unclaimed status did open up new possibilities. As a free agent, he could now negotiate with any team, potentially including the Toronto Argonauts, who had claimed his CFL negotiating rights. There was also the possibility of returning to the Buccaneers practice squad, as the team reportedly remained open to bringing him back. The speculation about his next moves was rampant. Analysts suggested potential landing spots, including the Cleveland Browns, to reunite with brother Shedeur and Denver Broncos due to depth needs at safety. But through all of this speculation, Shiloh himself remained quiet, letting others drive the conversation about his future. This approach aligned with what his father had said about having alternative plans in place. Deion's emphasis on Shiloh being a man of many talents and the family's preparedness for any outcome suggested that this silence might be part of a broader strategy that extended beyond football.
You better believe that. I take care of mine, and I've always have, and y'all know what I mean.
The family's response strategy appeared to be working. While critics attacked and supporters defended, the Sanders family maintained their dignity throughout the process. Deion's measured public statements, combined with Shiloh's strategic silence, created a narrative of a family that was prepared for adversity and confident in their ability to overcome it. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Shiloh's silence was what it revealed about the modern athlete's relationship with public discourse. In an era where every thought, emotion, and reaction is expected to be shared instantly with the world, choosing silence became a form of rebellion, a statement that some experiences are too personal, too important, or too complex to be reduced to social media posts or press conference sound bites. The silence also demonstrated a level of emotional intelligence that many young athletes lack. Rather than responding emotionally to criticism or defending himself against accusations, Shiloh chose to let his future actions speak for themselves. This approach showed remarkable restraint and suggested that he understood the long-term implications of his public statements during a volatile time in his career.
But some of these, sadly, is going to come to an end. Some of these guys are not going to get, what do we call it, Ocho? Practice squad opportunities. Some of these guys, it's over, it's the end of the road.
As the days passed and the initial media frenzy began to die down, Shiloh's silence took on new meaning. It became less about avoiding controversy and more about controlling his own narrative. By refusing to engage in the public debate about his worthiness, his family's influence, or the fairness of his treatment, he was essentially saying that his value as a person and as a player wasn't up for public debate. The question now becomes, what happens next? Will Shiloh eventually break his silence and share his perspective on this experience? Will he find another opportunity in the NFL, or will he pursue one of those alternative paths his father hinted at? The answers to these questions remain unknown, but what's certain is that his handling of this adversity has revealed something profound about his character and his approach to life's challenges. Whether this approach will serve him well in his future endeavors remains to be seen, but in a sports culture that often rewards the loudest voices and most dramatic personalities, there was something refreshing about an athlete who understood that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.